How you doing, folks? And this is Tell Me a Story by Brother Mike. And I thought it would be appropriate for me to get back with you about one of my previous videos regarding the city of Worcester and how the police and I guess the rest of the power structure have been reacting to an assault that I was subjected to by one of my neighbors. You know, you can watch the video and get an idea about what that was all about. This is kind of like a follow-up for you. You know, it's kind of, for me, it's turning into a bigger matter, you know, than simply my assault. I mean, I live in a neighborhood in the city of Worcester that, you know, I don't know much about the city. You know, I only been here a year, and when I found this place, it was appropriate for the purposes that I needed a place for. And, you know, I've lived here, and, yeah, it's not the most desirable neighborhood, but, hey, when I come home and I shut the door and, you know, I'm in my own space, I'm happy, you know what I mean? I got everything that I need, and nobody bothers me, except for, you know, the neighbor at 1:30 in the morning, but we don't have that problem anymore because the landlord has taken better care of me than the police have. They evicted the man, and now I have a wonderful Christian woman who lives next door to me. I think God even likes me a little bit too. You know, because I'm a Christian myself, and boy, what a contrast in neighbors, you know, just what the doctor ordered. Now, anyway, you know, kind of moving along, you know, this individual, you know, who assaulted me, I received a letter in the mail, and on the 27th of this month, which was this past Monday, you know, he was to appear in court for an arraignment. And the letter that I received encouraged me to contact a gentleman at the district attorney's office, Assistant District Attorney Lemieux is his name, to discuss the case, you know, presumably so that, you know, he can prepare himself for the prosecution of the matter. And as the victim, I'm sure whatever I have to say has value. And recall that I also had an eyewitness, you know, another gentleman who lives in the building, and, you know, he has not been contacted. I hope they do. But anyway, I reached out to this gentleman, Mr. Lemieux. I called him on 2 separate occasions, a week apart. Never heard back from the guy, you know, not a peep. You know, and little dismayed with that. You know, you would think that a attorney representing the citizens of the city that, you know, he is tasked to you know, advocate for wouldn't send a letter asking to be contacted so he could prepare himself unless, you know, there was a reason. Well, apparently it was not a good enough reason for him because, like I said, he's failed to respond on 2 different occasions. And, you know, 27th came and went. You know, I kind of considered going to the arraignment, but, you know, I work at night. I don't get out of work until 10 o'clock. I stay up very often, you know, past 2, and you know, I sleep, I don't get out of bed until 11:30, you know, and, you know, when it was a matter of should I go or, you know, get my sleep, I chose to get my rest, you know, and, but then I did follow up. I called the district attorney's office afterwards, basically to complain, you know, because I had not been contacted. And I asked for Mr. Lemieux's superior, and I forget the name that I was given by the woman that I spoke with on the phone. And she would not give me any means of contacting this individual. I asked for an email address. She refused. But she did say that she would communicate to Mr. LeBue's superior that I had called, and she would explain the nature of the call, which was that I was asked to contact him, and he had not returned my call. And she assured me that I would be hearing from this gentleman before the end of the day. Well, the end of the day goes by, never heard a word, okay? And now I'm really disheartened, you know. I'm wondering to myself, gee whiz, you know, are these people just going through the motions, you know? And, you know, it also kind of disturbed me that one day I was out and about, and, you know, who do I see walking down the street towards me but the assailant, you know, the guy's still on the street. I had wondered to myself, you know, have the police arrested him? Well, apparently not, you know. Apparently he simply received the summons to appear. Well, I guess he did appear because, you know, they did have the arraignment, so we got to give him that much credit, you know, for respecting the system to that extent. But I would have felt a lot better if, you know, they had held the guy, you know, because the last thing I want to do is have him see me knowing that, you know, he's got a lot to lose, because, you know, they do have priors on the guy. Hey, for all he knows, he could go to jail behind this stuff, and who wants to go to jail? And, hey, some people, if they're crazy enough, and this guy had to be crazy enough to attack me with a butcher knife at 1:30 in the morning, apparently either drunk or high, you know, you kind of want to see that guy on ice, you know what I mean? But thank goodness I was sitting in my car at the time, and you know, he just walked past me, and nothing happened, you know. Since then, like I said, the landlord has been kinder to me than the police and the authorities have been. You know, he no longer lives in the building, and that's quite a relief. You know, at least I can come home, you know, without looking over both shoulders, you know. But, you know, I'm really kind of concerned about this thing. You know, one of the reasons why I'm concerned is it would, you know, we are all entitled as American citizens to equal protection under the law. And to me, equal protection is following procedures. I mean, these matters should not be done in an arbitrary or capricious manner. They should follow a process, which is why they call it due process. The letter that I received, I'm assuming, was part of that process. But, you know, they didn't pay it any heed. You know, they didn't hold up their end of the bargain. And I think that's an abrogation of their duty to follow the process, which renders the matter what we call arbitrary and capricious. You know, maybe we'll get in touch with some people after we send them a letter saying we will, but other people we won't. No, that's not the way it works. You know, that's why they call it equal protection under the law. So I'm very concerned, ultimately, that the way things are conducted here in the city of Worcester are kind of like a fly by the seat of your pants, you know, you make the call type scenario. And you may recall that on a number of occasions dealing with the law enforcement community, their recurring theme has been, for lack of a better description, you know, what do you expect from living in a neighborhood like that? You know, and of course my retort is, you know, what does it matter what neighborhood I live in? Aren't I an American, and aren't I entitled to equal protection under the law? You know, just like the white guy on the other side of town that lives in an expensive home. Well, apparently in Worcester the answer is no, you know. But anyway, another aspect of this debacle, so to speak, it's yet to unfold completely. We don't know what the conclusion is going to be, is that they have not contacted my eyewitness. My eyewitness has not heard a single word from the authorities. Now, I'm wondering how, he's got a court date coming up on October the 10th, you know, and if they haven't responded to me and returned my calls and, you know, haven't heeded my concerns about the way things are progressing, what are they going to do with the eyewitness? You know, I mean, he's not the victim. I hope that they get in touch with him and get his input so that they can put together a viable method of prosecuting this guy. But I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if they never get in touch with him, or if they do, it'll be at the very last minute. I don't know. We're just hoping, that they at least contact the eyewitness, Another aspect of the case that I think is pertinent is the charge. I mean, this guy's charged with assault with a deadly weapon. Now, I am a 61-year-old man. I'll be 62 coming up in a couple of months. I know I don't look like I'm 62, but chronologically I am. And in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, if you're 61 years old, I mean, there's extra charges that get put on you. You're liable to do more time if you are a perpetrator of a violent assault upon what they call an elderly person. Nobody wants to accept the fact that they've lived long enough to, answer to that description, but apparently, according to the law, I am an elderly person. And there is no reference to this in the charges, The charges should be, assault and battery on a person that's elderly or over 61 years of age or 60 years of age, or however they express it. No, these charges do not reflect that, I feel that technically, and, our laws are all based on technicalities. They work both ways. They work for the victims, they work for the defendants. Technically, he should have been charged with that, but he has not been. Why hasn't he been? Maybe it's just because they're not paying attention. They have my birth date. They know, they can do the math. They should know how old I am. And I think that if they see a birth date, from the early 50s, that they would automatically, do the math and see if I qualify, if this victim qualifies to be have that extra rider put on the charges, so that the perpetrator, if found guilty, can get the punishment they deserve for perpetrating a violent crime upon an elderly person. Apparently, that's not a factor for them, and I think that goes to their failure to give me equal protection under the law as a elderly, quote unquote, elderly person, And I don't know, the cops kept saying to me 2 times, 2 different cops, well, what do you expect from living in that area, And of course, my retort is, what does it matter? But hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you. Since this matter has occurred, other things have happened in my building. Things that are really dreadful, and also cause me concern, which is opening up the focus of this beyond just me. I really do believe that the way these people function, the police and the courts and the system here in Worcester, is discriminatory, not just to me, but to people that live in areas that they consider to be undesirable. Here's an example. We had an unfortunate event here. As you know, we did have a drug overdose on the same day that I was assaulted. Well, a couple of weeks ago, the landlord did a quote-unquote welfare check on a tenant because he hadn't paid his rent on time, and I guess he detected a pretty funky odor, and went in the room, and there were 2 people there who had overdosed themselves on drugs and had suffered their demise and had been in the room decomposing for over a week. They evacuated the building, turned it into a crime scene, didn't put yellow tape up anywhere, Wasn't even hardly a mention of it in the paper. Matter of fact, I don't think they even mentioned it in the paper. You know, there was apparently a little bit of it on the news, but all they had was the picture of the building. You know, let everybody know, you know, what this building looks like. I guess, I don't know, on this horrible street, Oriad Street. You know, and I wasn't there at the time when they removed the bodies from the building. But of course there was a group of people assembled, you know, as the news spread. And apparently from the people that I've spoken to, the manner in which they removed these bodies was extremely disrespectful to the dead. You know, the descriptions that I have heard is that the coroner, who is apparently an elderly man, came to do the removal with a teenage boy, and I guess neither of them had the strength to move these bodies down the steps in a dignified manner. And when they got to the outside stairway in the presence of all the people assembled, the removal, they practically dragged them down the stairs, you know, to the point where not just one, not just two, but many people were horrified, literally horrified, at the undignified way that they hauled them down the stairs. To the point where, you know, one of the people complained to the police, and the police initially, you know, were like, yeah, who cares, you know what I mean? They're just a couple of junkies that killed themselves. But when the guy said that he was going to contact the Worcester Telegraph and Gazette, you know, they changed their tune and were a little bit sympathetic, but I'm sure it was just show, you know. And I mean, hey, yeah, okay, they died from drugs, overdose of drugs, and they lived in a building that you know, a lot of people wouldn't live in a neighborhood that a lot of people wouldn't live in. But hey, don't these people deserve a little bit of dignity, even in their state of demise? I think so, but apparently the authorities do not, you know, to the horror of those that were watching. And I got a good mind to try to find these people and memorialize their statements, because it's just an insult, not only to the dead, but to the living that were there witnessing it, you know. I did see that same day, hey, apparently in my building, you know, and I don't know what's going on here, but, you know, for the longest time it was just a nice place to be, you know, but recently, you know, there's just been this spate of really terrible things. A gentleman on the second floor, yeah, the guy's a drinker, you know, chronic alcoholic, and I guess he had a heart attack. And as I was coming up the steps, they were taking him down the steps on a gurney, the paramedics, and these are the same paramedics, you know, not the same individuals, but the same group of, you know, in the jurisdiction of paramedics that, you know, when they found the drug overdose guy previously, for the second time, told me, yeah, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, so, you know, they just let him stagger back to his room, you know what I mean? And, you know, didn't confiscate evidence, didn't charge him with a crime, or find out what he was shooting up or anything, you know what I mean? It was just like, yeah, okay, he ain't dead, you know, let's go. They hauled this poor guy down the steps. I mean, he had a sheet over him. I mean, he was like naked on the gurney, just shaking, you know, and you could tell he was just in a state of, you know, fear, you know, about his own welfare. And, you know, the paramedic in the back of the gurney, I mean, he wouldn't even exert enough effort to lift the guy up as they were hauling him down the stairs. And I mean, there's like 7 stairs on the front. And this, and that back of that gurney just crashed down each one of those steps until the sheet that they had covering his naked body almost fell off of him, exposing him, you know. And I mean, you would have thought that this big guy could have had enough respect for this man who had just suffered a heart attack to lift up the back end a little bit and soften his descent down the steps, rather than let the back wheels drag on the steps and shake him up violently on each thump of the steps on the way down, I mean, that's the kind of stuff, it's like adding insult to injury, And I gotta tell you, I'm really sick of it. I think that, we people that live on Oriat Street need to get together and let people know how we're being treated, how we're being neglected, how we're being treated in an undignified way, not only from a law enforcement perspective, but, hey, when they die here and when they get ill, because it has a chilling effect on the community. People say, what about me? What if I have an incident like me? I'm a diabetic. I got a heart condition and I got high blood pressure. What if something happens to me up here on the 3rd floor? Are they going to treat me like that too? Drag me out of here half naked and, drag me down the steps, and throw me in the back of an ambulance, like I'm a piece of meat, I mean, it's just like, hey, look, you can judge a culture by how they treat those among them who are the lesser of their brothers, And you remember in the Bible it says, whatsoever you do to them that be the least of my brother, that you do unto me, And these cops and these paramedics and these authorities at the courthouse, they need to heed that lesson, because there's a penalty for that stuff, and it happens, not in courts of law, but in the court of God. You answer for your sins. And when you treat them that are the least of your brother in an undignified way, and fail to even respect your own laws, I mean, the Bible says where there's no love, there's the law, Well, hey, guess what? There's no love here on Oriad Street, and there's no law either, And it's un-American, and it's inhuman. And I just want everybody to know, I think this is the greater issue beyond my attack, beyond this criminal matter that I'm involved with. It covers the whole community, and I just think there's an ethos and a culture here in Worcester where they just think it's like a fiefdom of their own, independent of the United States Constitution, where they can just treat people however they want to treat them, with impunity. So I think ultimately, I remember Dick Martin and Dan Rohn on Laughing. Well, this guy Dick Martin had an expression that I live by, and he said, "You let a monkey climb far enough up a pole, and sooner or later he's going to show his ass." Well, hey, guess what? I think the police, I think the authorities here in Worcester are showing their ass, and when they do, and when this matter is over and the analysis completed, if it's determined that there are civil rights violations, I am going to avail myself of every place out there that can answer those charges. I think these people need to be held accountable. And maybe the only language that they understand is when they get sued and they have to take money out of the Worcester coffers that could have gone to repairing the streets or feeding hungry children or the police benevolent fund or whatever the money would have gone to. If they got to pay it to somebody whose rights they violated, maybe they'll think twice about it, because it's horrendous what goes on in this town. Matter of fact, today I kind of took a little breather. I went down to the courthouse to try to find out what my status was on the case, And I gotta say, the lady down there, her name was Molly, very congenial person. But I stopped at the park that's behind City Hall, sat there and, kind of just relaxed for about 20-25 minutes. What do I see? People out there, and you can look out the windows of the City Hall down to the park, and all you can see is people dealing drugs. I mean, openly, with impunity, right behind City Hall. And you mean to tell me that, in this jewel of Worcester, this park where they're investing all this money, and people come to visit from out of town. Maybe they go through there. People bring their children there. People cross through there to do their business and whatnot. That they don't see drug dealing right out the window, when all I had to do was sit there for 15 minutes and I saw about three drug transactions, openly, with impunity. These criminals don't even care because they know the cops don't care. I guess they got to catch them red-handed or something like that. I should have called or made a call, but you know what? After what I've been through, I'm like, why bother? What are they going to do? If they cared about the crime in this town, they'd do something about it. All they care about is the window dressing of having police walking up and down the sidewalk on Main Street, that is highly visible to people, that travel back and forth through the town. But do they care what's happening on the streets that are running off of Main Street? Or do they care even about the sections of Main Street beyond the commercial areas? I don't think so. And I just think it speaks to a very dysfunctional authority structure here in the city of Worcester, from the city council, who I sent emails and a copy of my video to the members of the city council, didn't get one single response. Sent the video to the chief of police, didn't get one city response. Hey, maybe I'm the only one that knows. Maybe it's late breaking news to me. Nobody really cares about this stuff. Maybe they've learned to live with it. Maybe it's part of the culture. If you dare to live in a neighborhood like I live in, good luck. Because nobody else cares about you, and if you're the victim of a crime, you better be very proactive about getting your criminal matter addressed, because they could care less. Now, anyway, I'm going to keep you informed as we go along, and maybe I'm going to talk to some of my neighbors about this, because after that horrifying event of them dragging those dead bodies down the steps to the horror of some of the people in this neighborhood, maybe it's motivated them to say enough is enough, and they're ready to take action. And I'm ready to help them with it. I'm ready to lead them, along the way. Because I just think that what's going on in this city is a disgrace. And that's all I have to say for right now. And, hey, God bless you and God bless America.